Greetings of light. Welcome to AGP. This is December 2023 edition. It's the last in the July to December sequence. It's interesting to reflect on the wide range of topics we've covered. Ultimately, of course, it's all about consciousness. Everything connects back to that. But sometimes we need a reminder because life can be confusing. Life experiences can be so intense that they throw us off. And sometimes the effect is cumulative. It's not just this one experience, it's a whole bunch of experiences that pile up, and then we find ourselves potentially lost for many years. And of course, the reality is we're never truly lost, but we could certainly feel that way. And when we feel confused and lost, we tend to make not so great choices in things big and small. And all that, of course, reverses when we start finding our way back. Even if we feel I haven't discovered the entire truth and gotten to the very bottom of it, even then, if you're on the right track, you can feel incremental improvements in all areas of your life. So the payoff, the way I look at it is it starts on day one. You start feeling better no matter what the situation is. And your ability to navigate life significantly improves as you keep walking down this path of growth. And more you can handle challenges without internally getting rattled. And that's a pretty big deal. If you're always internally anchored in a place where you feel okay, you feel some sense of peace, that's very powerful. And I would say, as all of us know, even when you start looking at spiritual growth, consciousness, there's such a wide range of teachings, traditions, teachers. It can be pretty confusing. And we find often that we start somewhere and as we go deeper into that, we find that it's running out of steam in some way. That particular understanding, teaching starts running out of steam, and then we're ready for something deeper, something subtler. And we're naturally drawn to something else. Maybe another book catches our attention, or we hear about some event, and we keep going. Our ability to tune into truth keeps changing, keeps getting better. And our ability to directly access truth keeps getting better, which is very significant, because hopefully, as we proceed each step of the way, our dependence on external second-hand sources of truth is less and less. And instead we are able to rely more and more on our own direct internal connection with truth, with infinity. So even when we do have an external resource we find useful, we have a much healthier understanding and relationship with that external resource, so that we're not overly dependent, or we have certain negative dynamics going on. Those are all unhealthy in the long run, and we need to be always watching out for that. And of course, external sources can be very beneficial, very helpful in keeping us inspired, keeping us pointing in the right direction, keeping us supported during phases when we feel somewhat shaky and lost. So they have a place, of course. And yet, we always want to be conscious about how we're engaging with any external resource. Even whether it's a book or a living teacher or a teacher who has passed on, doesn't matter. How are you looking at that? And of course, our direct connection with whatever we call it, pure consciousness, infinity, the truth of our being, it's constantly evolving in the sense that our understanding of it keeps changing. And of course, the paradox is it's just our subjective sense of that connection that keeps changing. There are days we may feel very distant from this ultimate reality. And then there are days we feel very close to it. So that's an example of just our own subjective perception. But the reality is, we are never apart from it. That we are so deeply connected with it that we are inseparable from it, or as close as we can ever be. So it's very important to remind ourselves that the truth is not fluctuating, whereas our subjective perception of truth is fluctuating. And in fact, I would say, even for somebody who's supposedly advanced, this subjective aspect is always prone to fluctuations. The wisdom is not getting terribly influenced by our own subjective perceptions. Which translates to your thoughts may say one thing, your feelings may say one thing. They may say like, oh, I feel very distant from truth. That's just how you're thinking and feeling. It doesn't mean that's really the case. So we have to actually train ourselves to not listen to our own thoughts and feelings. Because when it comes to deeper truths, our thoughts and feelings can be just not accurate. They are part of the fluctuating reality. They're not the ultimate truth, right? The ultimate truth is not some beautiful thought or not some beautiful feeling. Those are simply surface phenomena. So once we really get that, then we're not going to take any thought or feeling that we have too seriously. We have to learn to set that aside. We can acknowledge it, but we don't have to take it seriously. We set that aside and instead allow ourselves to drop into this direct, intimate embrace of the infinite. It's almost like, you're walking along this narrow path. On one side, on the left, let's say, you've got all these thoughts, feelings, including spiritual thoughts, uplifting thoughts, inspiring thoughts, and every other thought and feeling is there. And all the resources, everything on the left. And on the right is infinity, which is with its arms wide open, ready to embrace you when you give yourself to it. And as you proceed along this journey of spiritual growth, this becomes more and more clear. Do I want to indulge in this particular thought that I'm having? Or I could dissolve into infinity. And as you see it with clarity, you're going to increasingly realize that all these years you've been looking for the truth. You don't want to compromise on that and end up with a second-hand narrative about truth. That is there's no comparison between the real thing and some description of it. So you don't want to fall for your own description, your own thoughts, which are so alluring, so attractive, that you may feel like, oh, let me think about this. Instead, the choice you always want to make is to keep dissolving into infinity. And the more and more and more you do that, you slowly are going to free yourself from this grip of the finite reality. Everything on the left in this particular metaphor is representing all the finite stuff, which has its own kind of gravity. It sort of sucks you into that, and you have to just drop it. Knowing that infinity is going to be there. It's not like, when you get very, very far along, then there will be infinity. No, infinity is always there. It's always been there. So the only question is, when are you going to release yourself from this sort of gravitational field of relative reality and melt into this embrace of infinity? And that's the question, and that is, in a way, it's what's in front of all of us. It's just that the more you keep walking on the path, the more it becomes clear. And the more you have the wisdom to recognize that even though whatever stories, very compelling stories that are coming out of the finite relative reality, they don't deliver the goods. They do not ultimately result in fulfillment that is truly durable. That means fulfillment that actually lasts, that stays, that you can count on. It's very, very flaky. So your wisdom helps you to not fall for all these stories from the relative reality, and instead drop into what might look like the unknown, because the infinity is unknowable. So if you're sitting around waiting that, once I really understand infinity, then I'm going to go for it, that doesn't work. You can never know infinity, understand infinity in any kind of conceptual way. The only way to know it is to be it. And you're not going to be being it if you're just thinking and conceptualizing it. So both those have to become clear. On the one side, the gripping quality of the relative reality, the grip reduces the more wisdom you have. So it's not able to pull you in as much as it could, in fact less and less with every passing year. So that's one positive thing. And on the right side, your intuitive feel for infinity, that is really the best you can do in terms of knowing. That tells you that this thing is worth it. That I don't know what it is, but I know it's worth it. So you allow yourself to fall into that undefined space. So these two things kind of, you can see what's playing out in your life. You want to make sure both of those are developing, so that the beauty is, as you're less entangled in the finite reality, you will find that it troubles you less and less. It's not able to quite throw you off, and it's not able to take you on some tangent, which is a pretty big deal, because a lot of folks are off on some tangent, and it can take you on some nice ride, can take you on a ride, And that can maybe take years before you figure out that, and that doesn't work. So you want to look at that piece, you can introspect about it. In my life, how much grip does the finite have on me? And if you're finding that you're in a pretty even state, meaning the ups and downs of life are not throwing you off, that's a pretty good sign. That's a pretty good sign. Over the months and years, if you're relatively internally even-minded. And on the other side, the question to introspect about is not so much how much expertise you've developed on this truth, on infinity, but instead your intuitive willingness to dissolve into it. The more that is the case, then you're doing pretty well. So this is sort of one model to look at, which shows your consciousness has come pretty far, if you can say those two things. The world doesn't have a grip on me, and I'm intuitively trusting, knowing, releasing myself into the infinite. And that's really beautiful. And this is, that's what awakening is, in a way. When you have a shift, at least one quantum shift, where you've released yourself. In my book, Just Be, I talk about many levels of that, so I'm not going to get into that here. But awakening is sort of the, you could say, the beginning of a significant shift. And so there can be multiple awakenings. It's not just one binary thing. So there's lots of interesting discussion topics today. I want to make sure we get to as much as possible. This is a good time now to orient yourself to this space we're in. Where our connection at the deepest level allows us to vibrationally shift which is something that happens beyond the mind. And the mind can try to step in from time to time, or it might try to make sense of it later on. That's okay, just be relaxed about it. Don't have to fight it. But don't feed it either. Don't feed the mind. That's the one thing you want to learn. If a thought is going by, don't be troubled by it. No problem. Just let it be. And it will disappear. You don't want to latch onto it. And this the first thing that happens when you latch on is you identify with that thought as my thought. And that sets it up for now a series of thoughts. So we don't want to get on that train. Just let the thought be, let it go by. And increasingly try to feel the, almost I would say, electrical or electricity in our connection. It's almost like, when you're touching a wire that has high voltage, you're going to feel it. You will feel, depending on how high the voltage is, you can feel it to that degree. You may feel a tingling sensation. As the voltage gets higher and higher, you're going to be more likely to feel it very strongly. So, imagine feeling the electricity versus reading a book about electricity, right? It's such a huge difference. You could read all you want about the equations governing electricity, conductivity, all the stuff, but that's not it. You actually want to feel the actual flow of electrons, the actual electricity. So similarly here, we drop all these beautiful ideas we have about higher consciousness and instead feel the flow of, I'm calling it electricity, but it's probably a better word is light. The flow of light, which is all around us and is intensified because of our consciousness. Because we truly want it. And so the interesting thing about this electricity, this light, is that as you feel it, even if it's the tiniest amount, it doesn't matter. If you feel it and you acknowledge it and you give yourself to it, it'll increase. And so it literally in seconds, it can go from a mild tingle to a full blast. It can go very, very quickly. And the reason we talk about light and we're engaging with light is because the shift in consciousness that we're looking for when we are in the light, our consciousness is naturally expanded and free of all the stuff that bogs us down. So, using the previous metaphor, the gravitational field of the relative reality, on the left, so to speak, that is like it's almost not there. Because of that, you're already so free. And then furthermore, your clarity allows you to see intuitively to the depths of truth more readily. And so you've got this tremendous connection going with infinity, and you're not burdened by the finite. So light is taking you to a place where it's like much more just naturally you are in that place of being one with infinity, being free. So that's why I feel so enthusiastic about light, because it can catapult us into those realms where truth is right there. So let us now start with our air practice. And following that, we will have our usual guided meditation. So let me get the timer going. And as you know, air practice is 20 minutes. 20 minutes will be in silence. You will hear a bell every 5 minutes. So you know to start with the next technique in the air sequence. All right. So here we go. As you can see, air takes us to this very subtle state of consciousness. Gives us a direct taste of beingness. And from this place we can really take off. And today's guided meditation we're going to use a super powerful tool. And I'll share a couple of things about it before we actually get into the guided meditation. The tool is called the Light of Infinity disc. It is a spinning disc of light. And I'll share a few things to help us have some sort of conceptual understanding, even though we need to keep in mind that it's beyond conception. This is a spinning disk of light, which is spinning so fast you could barely see it. It's got serrated edges. The edges are like a diamond in their power to cut through anything. So it's like a spinning disk of diamond-like light. You know, if you've studied physics, you know how that as they were getting deeper into the structure of the atom and starting to look at the electron, they realized that you can't pinpoint the position of the electron. They call it the electron cloud. The electron cloud means that we can just say it's roughly in this space. So just like that, this disk of light, it has this field around it that's very powerful, very formidable, and you can't quite tell where the edges are. In fact, if you want to be precise, this disk has got two rows that are moving in opposite directions. What's more important than the actual structure is that it clears and vaporizes that which does not belong. So the potential of this disk is in transforming and transmuting whatever is limited. So what's left is only the infinite. So it dissolves the small self, which is, in a sense, blocking us from realizing the infinite. The energy that emanates from the high-speed counter-rotating disks, it can overcome all the things, the conditionings that burden us. Sometimes these conditions cause afflictions of various kinds. In certain tradition, we may think of it as it's my karma from the past. It's really anything and everything that's as an impediment is dissolved. And furthermore, this disk, the light of infinity disk, it protects us and provides us the wisdom that is needed for seeing, perceiving infinity. It was some years back that I was actually in a meditation. I felt I was blessed with this gift that I was given. The gift of this light of infinity disk. And it's really a gift for humanity. It's like a supernatural, super powerful tool that's been given to humanity to rise out of all the troubles. So I feel it's a gift that helps transmute mankind's delusion and turning it into light, turning everything into light, so that it can bring about a grand shift of energy and consciousness on the planet. So it's really a blessing for Earth and all the beings on it. It has the power to confer inner freedom to anyone who is receptive enough, who truly internally receives it with humility, trust, surrender. I would go so far as to say it's one of the most powerful tools I've come across. And it was through an inner vision that I was made aware of this tool. And by being made aware, you could say I was empowered to utilize it for the good of the planet and all the beings. So that's what we're going to be working with today, the Light of Infinity disc. So you can make sure you're in a relaxed, comfortable position. Begin by visualizing this Light of Infinity disc above you. It's radiating this brilliant light. Feel its presence. This is the most important piece of it. And this is the piece which gets me excited about it. When you feel this, it's a powerful and benevolent force that has infinite power. When you feel it, you just melt. It's just like, wow, such a thing exists. So feel this disc above you, and just, however it feels, you can go beyond what I've described it. You can intuitively connect to it. You can have your own sense of it. And you will find that as you feel it, you are already feeling, you can't help but be transformed as soon as you connect and feel it. Visualize that the disc is gently descending from above towards the crown of your head. As it touches your body, imagine its light penetrating every cell, muscle, organ, system. Your entire body is instantly flooded with light. And as the light floods your body, the power of the light emanating from the disc, it clears everything on that physical level, everything that is in any way obscuring truth, the perception of truth and unity with truth is cleared. And this, of course, requires your own wanting that and being willing to have that happen. So both your awareness and receptivity are very critical. With every breath, feel the light from the disc, clearing physical toxins, diseases, imbalances, so that your body is lit up from within, right from the heart of every cell. Just imagine as a bright light has been turned on, and your body is now glowing with health, vitality, powered by this light. Now we allow the disc to move into our mental emotional space. Visualize the light from the light of infinity disc, dissolving any sort of negative thoughts, stress, emotional blockages, these limited ways of thinking, feeling. Experience the increased clarity and the peace, and feel how any mental fog or emotional turmoil is dissipating, because this intensity of the light is such that these disturbances cannot coexist with the light. The mind settles down, calms down, the emotions naturally return to a much more balanced and serene state. Here to feel free to see how the light is uniquely for you, how you are uniquely experiencing it, beyond anything I am saying. You can use your creativity, your intuition to sense the light doing this beautiful clearing. Now the disc is, the light from the disc is permeating all these centers, the energy centers and the light centers. Activating them, energizing them, aligning them, so that your entire system, spiritual, mental, physical, everything is in alignment, empowered, charged. So there's a harmony and flow of light and energy throughout your being. And now the light of infinity disk is expanding its light through time through what you see as your past, what you see as the present moment, and what you see as the future. See the light dissolving everything from the past traumas, difficulties, unprocessed stuff, brightening and illuminating the present moment so that there's intense clarity and illuminating the future so that the entire time dimension is clear, so that you are liberated from the clutches of time, so you can experience wisdom that is beyond the temporal dimension, so that your consciousness expands way beyond time and space. Within this finite reality, we are often concerned about areas such as health, such as relationships, material prosperity. Visualize the light clearing blockages in all these areas of your life, so that they're all uplifted and aligned with that what is for the highest good. So there's much healing, there's love, abundance. So that your finite existence is blessed and uplifted to a very high state, which is congruent with the high state of consciousness. And now, as the disk hovers just above you, see its light intensifying. This light is now removing the veils of illusion, revealing higher truths, so that your connection with light is becoming more and more profound, so that you can have these deep insights into your true nature, the nature of reality. The light of infinity can bring you right there to that place where you have the deepest freedom, boundless wisdom, and that you are embodying this. So allow yourself to drink these higher truths and the state of enlightenment where you're filled with light, the highest frequencies of light. And now you can see the light of infinity disk ascending, leaving you cleansed, rejuvenated. You have been, in a sense, enlightened by the light of infinity. And you can carry this light within you. So it's always illuminating your path, guiding you always towards the highest. Let's have a couple of minutes in silence as we feel this tremendous blessing of light. And the light is coming from infinity itself. So it brings with it that magnanimity and generosity and compassion and wanting to give us everything, the very highest. So let's focus on receiving that with gratitude, humility, allowing it to permeate us. So that we are irrevocably established in the infinite. Gently bring yourself back to being connected with your body, with your breath, with your physical surroundings, even as you retain this sense of connection with light, feeling the light. It can always be there with you. Take a few deep breaths, and at this point we'll take a short break. Definitely a good idea to drink some water, stretch. Let's take a 4-minute break, and then when we come back we'll have a chance to share and discuss. So see you back in 4 minutes. Welcome back. Now let's take some time to collect our thoughts. If anybody would like to share their experience during the meditation, um, share any insights, please do so. Of course, make sure you unmute yourself before you speak, otherwise, we won't be hearing you.
Suresh,
Yes, go ahead, Nicole.
um, hmm, that was powerful for me, and from the very beginning of you even speaking, but it was really helpful. Something just naturally was letting go of the thoughts and almost just coming home. I felt such a sense of unconditional love and compassion and care. I could feel the contrast of some tender emotions as well as them just being held in this more infinite space. And in some points throughout the meditation, I couldn't move my body, which is rare. And so that was in and out. And then when you had the disc coming down, there were times where I just made these involuntary sounds, like things were just trying to get purged. And sometimes they felt like they were flowing, and other times they felt like a jolt of sound. Um, Maybe there was something in it that was in me that was holding on, but it still felt the whole time like this powerful. I don't even know how to put the space to to put it in, but it all felt. I felt like my body was held in a way that it hadn't been before. So it was really nice. So thank you very much.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful to hear that. Yeah, it is incredibly powerful. It's really infinite power. So it's quite mind blowing. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
Hey, sorry, Suresh, it's Andrew. I've still got a bit of a cough.
Oh, okay, no worries. Go ahead.
Um, I yeah, I mean, I found it incredibly powerful as well. I think I'm just going to share my experience. So I immediately, when you mentioned the disc, I saw in front of me a spinning flat disc of light, and a little bit like Nicole, I didn't have conscious control over that then coming into my body. And it just sort of all energetically took off from that point onwards. What I did have conscious control over was following through on the different intentions you gave us for how we used that disc to remove lower vibrations and frequencies. And so I found it a really great tool because it felt intuitively incredibly powerful in that it had infinite power to eliminate any of those energies, but that I had control over it when when you were talking about using it in the body, I was moving it from chakra to chakra, and each of those it was clearing out, and then I was able to move it from head to toe and from finger to heart and back and forth and in and out. And each time, anything that was in my body cleared to a point of complete stillness.
Mm.
And the nice thing about that is that even now, it's still completely still. And it doesn't even feel like I have to return there.
Yeah.
It's just there as a very deep stillness.
Yes.
So thank you. And I also feel like it is, I think even without returning to the recording, it's a tool that I'll be able to bring into consciousness in meditation when necessary. So
Wonderful.
very grateful. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. That's firstly great to hear all that, and I'm so happy to hear about the stillness that it instilled and that you continue to feel. But what you said towards the end was exactly what I was going to recommend for everyone. Now, here's something you have, and you can bring it forth anytime, anywhere. You don't even have to be like sitting in formal meditation or in some sort of state. It could be anytime, anywhere. And it's literally, as soon as you think of it, you will feel the effect of it instantly. That's what amazes me each time I think of it. It's like, it's right away. Its power is felt. And the cleansing, clearing, uplifting is happening right away. So, yeah, beautiful to hear that. And yeah, do use it. It's your tool now. You can use it anytime, anywhere.
Suresh, can I jump in now?
Oh, please do.
It's so funny because I always think, oh, I've got nothing to share, and then I realize I do, because I don't think it's coming from the thinking mind, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what I wanted to check with you. I've been, when I'm out and about, particularly outside is best, but inside too, I often will just stop and just kind of a mini meditation, I suppose, just kind of look up, close my eyes, and just let the light just wash all through me from head. Feel like the vortex that you've talked about before, like that's just coming down.
Uh-huh.
And I felt similar with this. Is it different tool but same thing? Or yeah, do you know what I mean? Are you able to talk to that?
The disc is sort of it's a distinctive, unique tool, but at the same time, there's many ways to work with light, and it's certainly not the only way to work with light. Obviously, there's many ways, and there can be an overlap. When you work with light and you feel this vortex-like thing, it's perfectly fine. Wherever you feel intuitively drawn to, and that it feels good to engage in that way. Go in that direction. And a lot of the things, specifics, are not so important. What's more important is your inner connection with it, and
Right.
what kind of feels like, very much like, yeah, this is right, this is enjoyable, this feels good, just go for that.
It's really helpful. Even while you're speaking, I can feel rays of light just shining in on me.
Mm-hmm.
And just, well, might sound a bit silly, but it's like confirming and affirming what you're saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the amazing thing is, we could be sitting here on this highly manifest plane of reality and we can engage with light. And that is just amazing that we can connect with light. And light, of course, is very capable of increasing its presence on this level. And of course, the strange thing is, once you are in the light, you can no longer say, I'm just like sitting in this physical plane. You are no longer trapped in the physical. So you are, in fact, suddenly now an expansive being of light. And the subjective experience of living is very different, because you're no longer actually living exclusively on the physical plane. You're living now as a being of light on all the planes. And you realize, boy, this was always there. I could live like this. I didn't know I could live like this. And it's like, wow, it's welcome. And so it really, it goes far beyond solving some of the perplexing questions of life. It really is about living in that vibration.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Suresh?
Yeah.
This is Landon.
Uh-huh.
I have a question about light. I just love the meditations with infinite light. I just have loved exploring this whole realm. When we spoke the other day, we talked about the sun, and it just raised some questions for me. As I had mentioned to you, I'm out in California right now, and have been watching a lot of sunsets. And you mentioned something about just these amazing sunsets, about the powers of light, powers in the actual sun itself, which I just thought was so intriguing. I think, yeah, you just started talking about that a little bit, and I was just curious if you could say more or say anything more about that, just kind of sort of the mystery of what our sun actually, some of the other than just what we know about physical light, but other
Right.
properties.
Right.
And then just one other thing, sort of part two, is while I've been watching these sunsets, I've been taking pictures, and when I come away and look at the photos, it appears that there are these orbs that show up. And I've always heard people talk about that, but I've never really experienced that before myself. It's pretty amazing. I just wondered if you might have something to say about what those might be.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yeah. Both great questions. And there's so much to be said about each one of them. So let's at least hit on the key points. So the sun, even on a physical level, of course, is so amazing. It really gives us a true sense of the power of light. And of course, we've studied the sun a lot, mostly, using our scientific instruments and looking at all the radiation from the sun, the electromagnetic spectrum, and increasingly X-rays, gamma rays, cosmic rays, all the stuff. And we think we have a pretty good idea. But in fact, that's just a small piece of what the sun is. Just like, if you look at the sun with your physical eyes, I mean, at a time when it is okay to do so, so you don't harm your eyes, you see the physical sun as a ball of light. But if you look at it through the energetic eyes, so your subtle vision, if you look at the sun, you will see the subtle energy aspect of the sun. And the subtle energy aspect of the sun has immense power and radiations, which are subtle radiations, which the current scientific instruments do not register. But we, ourselves, are incredibly powerful and subtle in our own ability to perceive. So we can pick up on that. We don't need some instrument to tell us. The subtle aspect of you can sense that. And not only can it sense it, but it can, having sensed it, it can drink more deeply of that, which is very beneficial for dramatically, positively affecting our consciousness. Because when you look at the sun from deeper eyes, you are going to entrain to those radiations. And those radiations, the subtler ones, they are increasingly showing you your bigger truth, your bigger reality. They are showing you that. So the more you drink that, the more you're going to be like this bigger being. You're not going to feel like I'm this little being trapped in this body looking at this ball of light. You will feel very expansive because that's what the sun is emitting at subtler levels. And then beyond energy, this is transcendental light. And the sun is radiating that as well. And this becomes, there's a lot more to be said, because our physical sun, of course, we think of the sun as this particular star, which is the center of our solar system. But actually, it's more than that, even on that dimension. So our physical star, called the sun, is actually connected across millions of light years to the galactic sun. So it's like the Milky Way galaxy itself has its own sun, and our sun is connected to the galactic sun. So by really tuning into the sun, you are starting to tune into, through the sun, into the galactic sun, which is now representing, again, even a vaster consciousness and vaster possibilities of expansion. Now, the galactic sun, of course, already is pretty darn powerful. It is now connected to the cosmic sun. So it's like all these, in a sense, they are like proxies to deeper, higher aspects. So the cosmic sun, you can access the cosmic sun through our own local sun. And all this is, of course, the power of light is exponentially higher and higher each time you leap into a whole nother, outer, more expansive version of the sun. And so the sun is way more than what we ordinarily think of it. It's actually not only sustaining life, of course, on the physical plane, but even that light is sustaining us on deeper levels. Because we are beings of light. I mean, we drink light. We don't realize that we're eating and drinking light to actually live. It's not just the food.
It's just amazing. It's amazing. Was it David Bohm who said that, who made the statement that we are frozen light? Is that right?
You know, I'm not totally sure if he was the one, but he said some remarkable things, so I wouldn't be surprised.
That's just
Over
amazing.
the years, there have been many people who said something along those lines, including mystics
Hmm.
who have said about us and about the reality around us as really light, frozen light. So that's the amazing thing. And so when you look at the sun, there's a lot going on,
Right.
and the more you can open up and tune in, the better. And of course, I'm not saying, just to be clear, staring at the sun in the middle of the day.
Right.
It's more. It's obviously you want to do that at a safe time, which is dawn and close to sunset. Yeah. Okay. The second question was about what?
Orbs. Taking
Orbs.
photographs.
Okay. Right.
Right.
So orbs is a interesting topic. Now there's of course skeptics who many of the orbs we may see, maybe actually some interesting sort of light phenomena with reflections and lenses and so on. But not all the orbs are explainable that way. There's actually orbs you may pick up on that are essentially intelligent capsules of light. And you could see all kinds of qualities with orbs. There's all kinds of things, but you could look at them as you could potentially look at them as intelligent beings, even, which are making their presence felt as an orb. And yeah, you could, at the very least, you could look at it as there's a lot more going on than meets the eye.
Right. It's been mysterious, and I just
Yeah.
I just want it, yeah. Anyway, to be explored.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I've just sensed something going on with the sun, and I just wanted to. It's more than just a physical body, my
Right.
body,
That's,
engaging with. I just can feel something more, and I really appreciate
yeah.
Just learning more about
Yeah.
what's going on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. In fact, over the centuries, many ancient civilizations have really recognized the sun as something much more than just our local star.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we tend to feel in our more modern scientific viewpoint that we pretty much know, those ancient civilizations, they were lost in mythology and all kinds of things. They don't really know. But actually, we are the ones, I think, who who have just a small perspective on the sun. There's definitely has a lot. There's a lot. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
Since we're talking about the sun, it's kind of almost, I think for a while there, I was embarrassed, but after hearing this, I feel like the sun is communicating with me. And in the mornings I sit in a window where the sunrise is coming up, and I just see the light, and I just drink my hot water, and I say hello. And in the last couple months, I feel like there are times where I'll have an insight or an inspiration, or I'll feel a presence, and then the sun like will come out of the clouds as I'm thinking that, like, yes, you're pay attention here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it responds to certain awarenesses or energies that are moving through me. That's it, kind of the way it dances through the clouds, and when it decides to shine on me, where all of a sudden I'm having this insight.
Yeah.
So is that just coincidence, or I mean, is there really, I mean, I think some of it I could just maybe be making up in my mind, but it does feel really palpable, almost like a presence that is lovingly relating to me, like, oh, hello, finally you're seeing me at a deeper level.
Right. Yeah. So that, I would say, definitely, there's a deeper presence, deeper connection that is there. Any given phenomena that you see may or may not be reinforcing that, but or validating that, but it doesn't matter actually. In fact, I would recommend assuming that it is. Assuming that indeed the sun spoke to you, and deepening that connection and that relationship instead of questioning it. I wouldn't question it.
Yeah, I think for a little while I was like, okay, I think I'm going a little crazy, but at a certain point I'm like, I don't care if I'm crazy, because it feels really loving and beautiful and nice. And so I appreciate her question with bringing this up, because I do feel like the sun has so much more to communicate and share in our awakening journey.
Right. And you will find that with all these interactions with the sun, the communications you have, you may be like, I'm not 100% sure, but just keep going. And once in a while, you will have such a strong knowing that that just happened was real. It'll just be like, there's absolutely no doubt. So we've got to kind of allow for that and give it the benefit of the doubt. And there will be times when there's no doubt at all.
Beautiful. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's exquisite. There is no doubt, but I appreciate this to let my mind rest and enjoy it a little more.
Yeah. I mean, all of nature, for that matter, there's so much going on at so many levels. And it's like we are so, if we could allow for it, rather than be caught up in our very, very sort of technical, scientific outlook, which is mind-based, we would see so much magic all around us. It's all the time.
Yes, I feel like nature is coming alive in so many ways and communicating. And the sun was a surprise. I didn't expect it. So it's been, so thank you.
Absolutely. Looking at the question on the chat, can we use this whole process on others to heal and uplift? Absolutely. Yeah. As you feel inspired to, you can use it for other people and for the country and for the continent and the whole planet.
Thank you, Suresh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Suresh, Vignesh here.
Yeah.
Speaking of sun, like I recalled some of your meditations. You ask us to visualize an inner sun that's on top of you. You raise your, you try to point your eyes upwards and you try to visualize energy flowing through.
Yeah.
So I do have challenge, like visualizing it. And is it because, some people are more visual versus the others, or it's just a suggestion to, like feel that there is something above you so that, you channelize something beyond you?
That's right. So yeah, indeed, for some people, visualization comes easy. And then there are some people, they just can't visualize. And you don't have to feel like, there's something deficient or missing. You can intuitively feel, instead of, visualizations, of course, imaging, actually seeing an image. Instead of seeing an image, you can feel an image. And in fact, so let's say, just to give it a, make it a concrete example, if I were to say, visualize you're sitting on the beach. Okay. So you can bring up a picture of a beach, sand, ocean, waves, sky, all these things. But let's say you're like, I can't visualize a beach, sorry. So what you could do there is, you can feel the sand on your feet. You can feel the ocean breeze. You can hear the birds flying by. You can hear the waves, right? You could do all this without visualizing. So in other words, there's more than one way to put yourself in that space. Doesn't have to be a visual. It could be in any other way that feels easier to you. So I would say, whatever is more natural, you can substitute. Whenever I say visualize, you could substitute your more natural tendency to connect with the non-physical. You can use that.
Makes sense.
And you're going to be able to, and that's completely fine. You're still going to get everything you need to get from that inner sun. It's not being able to visualize is not going to hold you back. Yeah.
Absolutely. Can I ask another question along
Sure.
the same lines?
Sure.
So there have been only a couple of instances, where I did get the feeling of a higher energy or light, so to speak. So it came more auditory, like I felt a huge spike in a sound, so to speak. So I did feel that, okay, there is something beyond me. I really can't imagine this. This is beyond my imagination. There is something really going on here. Initially, I did get a little bit scared, but it took a while for me to get comfortable with it. So I felt that was one experience I felt like that. So do you think that's sort of like varies from people to people? It's a valid experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can hear vibration. And so the subtle vibrations, you can hear it. And as your consciousness rises, as the vibration rises, you can feel the pitch and amplitude of this inner sound changing. Absolutely.
Thank you, Suresh. I recall that, like I had to be in a really between semi-sleep and semi-woken state and be really aware for me to get there.
Yeah.
And when I try to do it, sometimes I don't get it, but it just happens naturally when I don't really expect it at all. So
Yeah.
there is no formula for me to get there. Like I just have to let go, and it happens sometimes.
Okay. Yeah. Continue to play with it, engage with it, experiment. And of course, as you also meditate, you'll find these things are much more accessible.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. other sharings before we switch gears? Okay. Several interesting topics, and each one of these is potentially, we could spend any amount of time on each of these. So let's see where to start. Let me start with what I think is a little more contained. Okay, so the question I got is, some AGPs back had mentioned that we are here to shatter the structures that are keeping us trapped. And depending on how attached we are to these structures, the process is either pleasant or not. So the question is, could you expand on these structures and what are they and what am I talking about? So let's see if we can elaborate on that a little bit. So these structures, of course, we all know what a physical structure is, right? I mean, a house is a physical structure. So we kind of have a sense of that. Now, translate that into non-physical reality. So in fact, a lot of our inner stuff is affected by inner structures. So everything you are feeling in your consciousness, right? You can feel like there are things, and I don't mean physical things, I mean non-physical things. They can be very abstract. And I just use the word structures to refer to a whole class of non-physical things. So these include, for example, views, ideas, perspectives, opinions that you have on everything. The world, the people around you, what you think about growth, and of course identity. We have concepts, ideas about all of these things. These are like non-physical thought structures. And they're just not just thought structures, there's also energetic formations. So again, this is another kind of structure. These are things that influence us. We don't realize that we're carrying it with us. So, but it does show up in our, what you believe in. For example, all your beliefs, all your thoughts, your attitudes, your behaviors, it shows up in those things. And so literally, if you are presented with something, how you perceive it, how you think about it, how you feel about it, it's all being affected by these internal non-physical structures. And each one of us is a unique combination of these things. So we have these formations that are influencing us and how we perceive and think and feel and behave and choose. Everything we're doing is actually being affected by these structures. So when we start looking at higher realities, guess what? These structures are affecting that too. So, and the way they affect it is typically they are obscuring a clear view of truth, a clear view of reality. So when we sit down, let's say we sit down to meditate, and our intention is, I want to see truth. we feel like, I can't quite see it. Why? Because of all these structures. So these structures end up acting as blocks, constrictions, not only with the ultimate truth, but even with ordinary reality. So if you meet a new person for the first time, you have a certain impression of that person, and you think that's correct. Actually, you can be sure it's not accurate, because it's highly influenced by these structures. So you have a biased view of a person, and you think your view is correct, but it's not. So in other words, this distortion it introduces. All these structures we're talking about, they introduce a distortion in our perception of outer and inner reality. So when we start getting down to the business of, I want to perceive the ultimate truth, well, guess what? All these structures need to be dissolved, shattered, because they're keeping us trapped. They're acting like the prison walls that are keeping us trapped. So when we dissolve these structures, then what happens is we have a better shot at it. We have a clearer view, and then we can escape. So the distortive perception, the distortive effect that structures have, that makes false appear real, that distortion is neutralized. So their ability to hide the truth is gone if we dissolve these structures. And then we're left with an easier, more natural view of infinity, of truth, of ourselves, of the world, of everything. So the more we're attached to these structures, the more we're going to cling to them and not want to dissolve them. So it'll become a struggle, a conflict. Part of you wants to destroy it, part of you wants to keep it. Okay, this is where there's going to be either ease in the growth process or a lot of turmoil, difficulty, bumpiness. So, all of us have some, these structures floating around, but if we're not attached to them and we start dissolving them, then it's going to be like rapid growth, and it's going to be enjoyable because the structure is dismantled and you feel pretty good about it. Okay, but if on the other hand you're attached to it, now the dismantling is not going to be straightforward. It's you try to dismantle it and like no, that's one of my cherished opinions and beliefs. We're not going to let that go so fast. So we may dismantle it and reconstruct it, dismantle it, reconstruct it. It becomes a long drawn out process, which is not so pleasant. Now, life itself is constantly doing this, by the way. Life is constantly dismantling our structures through what we see as change and transition. And we don't always like it, right? We may resist it, we may fight it, we may rebuild it. But life is always going to be pushing us in that direction. And if we proactively dismantle structures, I feel we're going to take off big time in our growth of consciousness. So that's that on structures. Let me pause and see if there's any follow-up questions or anything I said wasn't clear.
So Suresh, this is Ravi here.
Yes.
So let's take something like I like ice cream. And the question becomes, am I addicted to ice cream, or can I get to this state that I still like ice cream, but I'm not craving for it? The thing I'm looking for is, how do I know that I have arrived at that state? Is there a way to check it?
Okay. Yeah. Good question. So you're right. So these things, they are an issue only if we have this unhealthy relationship with it. In this case, ice cream. So if you got your favorite ice cream, you're about to sit and have it, enjoy it thoroughly, you're looking forward to it, and somebody bumps into you and the ice cream falls, and that's the end of the ice cream. So how are you going to feel there is going to indicate whether you're attached to it or not, because the experience was just taken away. It was going to happen, didn't happen. Now if you're not attached, it's going to be like, yeah, too bad. Looks like today I won't be able to have ice cream. So these changes, we can even play with it in our imagination. If it's there, if it's not there, do I feel a difference? And that can tell you if there's attachment or not. And of course, the waves that we feel every day, right? The fluctuations we feel every day. We're expecting a phone call. The person is not calling, and I could get really worked up. Now that's because I'm attached. Yes, I'm expecting a call. If it doesn't come, well, it doesn't come. It's like if you could see that you're neutral, then you're okay.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And, there is a tricky thing here, which is there are things we desire, which we are like, okay, yeah, I'm attached to it. But sometimes there are things we have the opposite of desire, like we have a distaste for it. And we say, oh, that's not a problem. I'm not attached to it. Actually, that's an attachment too. This is a non-obvious. If you push or pull, there's a problem there. Because if you're pushing something away with distaste and hatred and antipathy, then it's basically, that's a desire to not have it. Okay, so that gets us into trouble. So you want to be really neutral. Again, if you're confused, then always think of it as your infinite space, infinite consciousness. It's like you realize what neutral we're talking about. Imagine the space in the room that you're sitting in. Okay. This is another example of neutrality. The space you're sitting in right now, the room has some furniture. Tomorrow you go and get a new couch, let's say, and put it in that room. Okay. The space in the room, do you think the space in the room likes the couch or doesn't like the couch? The space is actually completely neutral. as to what's in it. It's not liking it or not liking it. The furniture. It's just, that's what's there in that space. So the more you can tune into that kind of quality, how space is with what's in it, it's totally neutral. It transcends it, actually. So that's kind of one way to think about it and to get a feel for it. Because if we only think about it, then we're not quite there yet. Because I might think I'm neutral about something. Let's say cars. If you ask me, I would say, yeah, I'm neutral about it. It's fine either way. But that actually is just my thought. I could be completely fooling myself with my own thoughts. The reality could be something else. Okay. So we have to be careful. It's not just our superficial thoughts. It's really inside how you feel. Any other comments or questions on that topic?
This is Suresh, Landon here.
Yeah.
The tool, the practice with the spinning disc of light that can remove these structures. There's certain things that I am aware of that are kind of like old belief systems that are not, as they say, not serving serving me that well.
Yeah.
But doing an exercise so that I'm consciously sort of setting an intention to loosen that up. I could use this tool for that, but also maybe there are things I'm clearly just in my blind spot. I'm not aware of, where there's structures, energetic beliefs that are just gunking up the space, the inner space.
Right.
And this tool is helpful in both situations, both.
Right. So yeah, you bring up a couple of really good points. One is structures we're actually aware of, which is great. And yes, you can absolutely use the light of infinity disk to dissolve those structures. But usually there's quite a bit that we're unaware of. And like you said, that's what gets us. Now you can use the light to, number one, illuminate your inner space so that you become more aware of whatever is there. Okay. And then that's what will happen. It will illuminate it. And you will become aware of it. And then you can, if you want to dissolve it, you could dissolve it. The most important thing I want to say about that is that, we have a tendency to label things and feel like, yeah, I got it. So for instance, let's say I have a anger problem. I can't manage my anger. It feels like, yeah, I know exactly what my problem is. It's anger, okay? But actually these subtle things, they are not prone to being easily labeled. It's a very amorphous thing. You can't even say what the heck it is. You can't clearly say, oh, it's fear of flying or some such thing. It's not that clear. It's this nebulous fear. And if you ask me what is it, it's like, I can't tell you what it is. I wish I could. I can't even tell myself what it is. So it defies categorization, conceptualization, labeling. So what happens there is, if you get into that subtle space, you're working with light, it's illuminating things. You can see these things. If you start going down this path of trying to say, what is this thing? Let me see what it is. What do I call it? Where did it come from? Why is it here? What color is it? Oh boy, now you're like, basically, you want to write a book about it. It's completely going to slow you down. Okay, because the unstated assumption is I have to properly characterize this thing so I can dissolve it, because I do want to dissolve it. Well, this is the most important point. You don't have to characterize it to dissolve it. You just need to have this vague sense of, yeah, it's something. I don't know what it is. It's something. That's good enough. Use the light to dissolve it. Don't get into the business of, I need to know what this is. Okay.
Right.
And I wonder if it was this thing that happened 20 years back when I moved, this happened, that now you're like trapped in it.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, there's many of these things floating around as you start exploring consciousness. There's all these things lurking around. You are going to do much better if you simply deal with it as these vague things. But you can sense something, right? You can sense something. You just can't say what it is. Good enough as far as releasing goes, as far as light is concerned. So I would say just efficiently start dismantling and dissolving these structures, and don't get into painting them and figuring them out and seeing what it's all about. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sureshji, this is Ravi again.
Yeah.
This brings me to this thing that probably you have heard these days. People talk about trauma as big T and a small t.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying here is we all have a lot of small t's for sure, and probably, big t's too, most probably. So my question to you is this so-called technique, if you want to call it, or approach, does it work with both? Definitely, I see a lot of value about small t because we are totally unaware and we have put it under. But people want to say, okay, I want to go through big T and uncover it and this and that could be a trap itself. So I would like to have a perspective from you on this, and I thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, trauma is a big topic, and seems like for one reason or another, everybody has to deal with some level of it. As far as the dynamics go, I look at it as not so different in the sense that whether it's a little trauma or a big trauma, the underpinnings is the same. It is fixation on some false reality. And it can be held up only by some structure that is based in untruth. So the solution is the same. Dissolve it. Dissolve it. If it's small, you dissolve some small structure. If it's big, there may be a big structure. But as far as a tool like Light of Infinity disc, it's far, far beyond any trauma that we can think of. So its capacity to dissolve these things is immense. So I think it can definitely be used. Now, some of these tools, they're really available to all of us. I mean, there's no prerequisite. But oddly, some people use it, some people don't. And that's just how, there needs to be a certain ripeness, I guess, in consciousness to be able to tap into these things. And you can't really force somebody. They have to be ready. And, with trauma, it's a strange, funny thing, actually, because sometimes you bump into, not sometimes, actually, oftentimes, you bump into cases where the person has trauma and they're attached to it. The trauma itself, they're attached to it. So on the one hand, they want to be free of the trauma, so that, they're suffering. And they would be like, yeah, I want to stop suffering. So they do want to be free of the trauma. On the other hand, a part of them is actually attached to some structure that is sustaining the trauma. So basically, they have an agenda that is a mixed agenda. They want to get rid of it and they don't want to get rid of it on the one level. So anyway, the reason I mentioned is there's many such things going on when you're presented with a tool like this, they sometimes may not feel inclined to use it, some people, for some strange reason. So anyway, that's a side note, but bottom line is, I think trauma, small and big, are absolutely really the same underlying issue, and they can be dissolved.
Suresh, just on the same topic, not the trauma so much, but on the structures.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear me, eh?
Yes.
Oh, good. I don't like doing all of that with all the mute on. So what was I just thinking? I was thinking about how I first came across you on the Anthony Sheen interview, because I watch all of his, and so it was a while ago. And so correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't rewatched it for a wee while, but I think it was you that said that if somebody had said to you at a certain point along the spiritual path, like, are you making progress, or what's happening, you'd say, no, not really, nothing's happening.
Right.
But then, was that you?
Yeah.
And you started to notice that you were approaching things differently, and then you were like, it is. So that was you, wasn't it?
Yes.
Was it you? Oh, good. Because that's exactly what I find, and my friend too, who'll probably do the next AGP as well. We talk about it a lot, because it's such a strange thing when you realise that there's a situation that you find yourself in, and you realise you've dealt with it completely differently to that you would have dealt with it just a couple of years before.
Right.
And it's just didn't hit you the same. And I'm sort of thinking that on the one hand, we can identify structures or notice false beliefs or things that are holding us back. But on the other hand, the work kind of does it itself too, would you say?
Yes, that is also true. I mean, if you keep chipping away with a good set of practices, you will find that those things are happening too. Yeah. Yeah. And you may notice it only when you realize a perception has changed or a behavior has changed. And you're like, oh, yeah, something's changed. Yeah, that can absolutely happen too, and does happen. But
Is that
I guess
a
the
more
point
healthy
is,
way than, yeah.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. But you can also be a little more deliberate about it.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. If you're eager for more growth, I think a deliberate sort of hunting down of structures that are not serving you is absolutely can be a great practice too.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there's a question on the chat. I'll take that and then we'll switch topics. This question is about structures. So the question is, how do we more proactively dissolve these structures and, more effectively? Well, I would say, like the technique we just went through, light of infinity, use light of infinity disk. You can do that whenever you feel inspired to, and that would proactively do it, and efficiently and effectively. So I would say that's would be close to the top of the list, if not the top of the list. Also, I think, longer meditations, I mentioned from time to time, longer meditations are very beneficial because some of these things, you can actually kind of pick up on these things. You can see what all is lurking in your consciousness. And that's going to help you eradicate them. So I know one super intense meditation retreat I did a long time back. This was a very intensive setting. They say in the US it's the most intense, difficult retreat you can do. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. When you're in your 20s, you're kind of foolish. So this was my sort of foolish thing. Sure enough, on day one, I was like ready to go home. It's like 13 hours of meditation where it's like brutal. You can't move a muscle. So what happens is it doesn't take long before all this crap in your consciousness becomes visible. Okay. So, until then I was thinking, I think I'm getting pretty spiritual here. I'm doing pretty good. I'm just, whatever I was, 22 or 23 or whatever it was. I was like, doing all right. But in that retreat, I was quickly realized I'm at the, start line. A lot of stuff floating around, a lot of junk. So, long meditations is one way to discover what all is floating inside. And of course, I even though I felt like quitting almost every day, I just kept going for the entire, I forget how long it was, might have been 10, 12 days. But it really was helpful because I was no longer fooling myself. It was very clear. And at the end of the day, there's nothing to feel bad about it. It's just like, that's what's there. Okay. Just, get down to it, clean it up. And no need to get depressed about it. Whatever is there is there. Just get down to the business. So, so that's another way to look at it. Now, of course, I wouldn't recommend anybody just go and sit for 10, 12, 13 hours a day. You have to have a foundation that gives you enough psychological stability to do that. If you don't have that, then you will come out of it psychologically unstable, which is not a good result. So, with that caveat, I would say long meditations is helpful.
Sureshji?
Yeah.
In practice of regular meditation, I find the similar effect also happening where the uncomfortable stuff kind of starts coming in.
Yes.
And it kind of even culminates in a like really intense, let's say, jarring integrative experience, which kind of feels like a challenge to like overcome, and it kind of leads for me at least to skip the practice of in some particular day, right? Like, so I mean, I'm just still, I guess, grasping at the ropes of maintaining through that. So just thought if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very true. I mean, I guess this what I talked about with longer meditations. In fact, these days, I think the vibration of the planet is sufficiently high that you can have a 20-minute meditation and it could be like a lot of stuff coming up. So that's, in a way, it's actually good because you don't have to dig very deep to unearth these things. It does help, firstly, from a practical point of view. Even a short meditation, after you're done, don't get up and immediately jump into day-to-day activities. It creates a very rough re-entry. I would say after you're done with meditation, just sit, continue to sit with eyes open, looking around for some period of time, at least 5 minutes. And if you're feeling it's still rough, then I would say maybe more, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, where you are sort of coming out more gently into the day-to-day life. And that helps with the integration. The other thing I would say is, these things coming up, the way it can feel unpleasant, and that's kind of like why you would, some other day you might feel like, I don't feel like taking on this. I'm already feeling not so good and I'm going to do meditation and maybe feel even worse. So I don't want to go there today. And I think this neutrality, where if you're able to be with even stronger emotions that come up, but not feel so strongly identified with it, that helps a lot. Because you can be feeling strong feelings, but you're not getting dragged with that. And that'll help you just be more of a neutral observer. And in the long run, you can tackle, big things, big stuff. And not run away. Otherwise, our tendency is, we are creatures of comfort. We love to be comfortable and we always want to be happy. And anything that sounds like anything other than that, we want to run from it. But here, when you start looking at growth and all these structures we're talking about, you're basically looking for trouble, right? In a way. In the long run, of course, it's going to actually be good. But in the short run, it can feel, unpleasant actually. Because when you bump into a structure which has stayed unconscious for a long time, guess what? It's stayed unconscious for a good reason. It's something you don't want to feel. Something you don't want to feel. So when you bump into it, you're like, when you become aware of it, you're going to feel that. Whatever was unconscious for the long time, you feel that, and guess what? It feels extremely unpleasant. That's the reason it was, hidden away. So we shouldn't be too surprised or feel like something went wrong with the meditation. No, there's going to be this little release of something feeling not so good, but the awareness will dissipate it.
Right. Sorry to interrupt, but I'll just modify this a little bit.
Yeah.
So actually, meditation actually helps in, let's say if I'm feeling 7 units good, meditation actually puts me to 9 or 8.5, right? But what happens is when I continuously go on this, my baseline increases to 8.5, right? When it gets better and better daily. And then there is this one jarring integrative not during a meditative meditation experience, but like a life experience, maybe with work or something. When that baseline comes down, that is where I feel like, oh my God, all these gains are going out in like one single experience. I would rather not grow so fast. I would rather go in this pull a card so that I don't feel this
Right.
loss in one day or something. So, I mean, it's kind of like a childish way to look at it, to be honest, but it
Right.
still feels hard. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it totally makes sense. I mean, we want to hang on to the high that feels so good. Now, again, I said earlier, life is one of the best teachers. So it's going to serve up these experiences, which it feels you're ready for that. So, like it or not, here it is. So it will bring you down, but that's all part of the deal. You get better at not going down as much. And even when you go down, you are able to bring yourself back up much faster. Better recovery. So yeah, that's just how it is. Outer obviously experiences we cannot dictate that. It just happens.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Well, that topic it took a little longer than I thought it would. Seems like my estimates are always off. We have two big topics ahead of us. This might end up in the next AGP. Now it's high time for a lighter side. So I think let's do that. Let's not miss out on that one. So here we go. Oh, before I do that, unmute. Okay, so if you're comfortable with it, go ahead and unmute yourself so we can hear your response to these one-liners. And today we do have one-liners, and some of them are a little longer than one-liners. So just so you know. So the topic this time is doctors.
Oh, God.
Oh boy. Okay, let's see how you react to all these then. My doctor told me jogging would add years to my life. He was right. I feel 10 years older already. When I told my doctor about my loss of memory, he made me pay in advance. When an employment application asks who is to be notified in case of emergency, I always write, a very good doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I know that adding cheese to anything makes it an antidepressant. I thought reverse psychology was when you made your therapist cry. When I said I was afraid of the dentist, I meant the bill. I hate that feeling after surgery when you're not sure if you're awake or asleep or if you operated on the right patient.
Oh my God.
So now we get to some slightly longer anecdotes. So doctor said, I have some bad news and some very bad news. Patient, well, might as well give me the bad news first. So then the doctor responded, the lab called with your test results. They said you have 24 hours to live. Patient was like, 24 hours? That's terrible. What could be worse than that? What's the very bad news? Doctor said, I've been trying to reach you since yesterday.
Oh, no.
Along the more bad news vein, doctor said, I've got very bad news. You've got cancer and Alzheimer's. Patient, well, at least I don't have cancer.
Hi, buddy.
Ponder about that if you didn't get it. What's the difference between a general practitioner and a specialist? Answer: one treats what you have, and the other thinks you have what he treats. Here's a bunch of things that you don't want to hear during surgery. First one is oops. Second is, has anyone seen my watch?
Oh.
Another one is, that was some party last night. I can't remember when I've been that drunk.
Jeez.
Oh,
Damn, page 47 of the manual is missing. Okay, now take a picture from this angle. This is truly a freak of nature.
Oh. Jeez.
Damn, there go the lights again. Everybody stand back. I lost my contact lens. So, yeah, those are things hopefully you don't hear during surgery. All right, so 2 doctors and an HMO manager. Hopefully everybody knows what an HMO is. I know in the US you would, but I'm not sure what HMO translates to in other countries. But 2 doctors and an HMO manager die and line up together at the pearly gates. One doctor steps forward and tells St. Peter, "As a pediatric surgeon, I've saved hundreds of children." St. Peter lets him enter. Next doctor says, "As a psychiatrist, I've helped thousands of people live better lives." St. Peter lets him go ahead. The last man says, "I was an HMO manager. I got countless families cost-effective health care." St. Peter replied, "You may enter, but you can only stay for 3 days. After that, you go to hell." So you gotta know a little bit about HMO stuff. Sorry if... Okay. Lastly, these are doctors' notes. These are funny notes written by doctors. These are actually sentences written by doctors at National Health Service in Scotland. So you'll soon see why these are funny. On the second day, the knee was better, and on the third day, it disappeared. The patient has been depressed since she began seeing me in 1993. Discharge status: alive, but without my permission. Patient has 2 children, but no other abnormalities. Finally, the patient was in his usual state of good health until his airplane ran out of fuel and crashed. This is all written by doctors. So anyway, that's... okay, there you go. So that's our dose to bring us back to good health. All the laughter. Okay, so I'm going to mute us all. It's not a whole lot of time. I'm going to take on one thing, and I'm going to be very brief, and we'll see how much I succeed. The topic is AI. And there's really 2 subtopics. One is, how can one use AI for personal growth? And another one is about AI and consciousness. So I'll say a few things and then I'll open it up for discussion to see what direction we want to go. First of all, AI, there's lots of stuff literally every day in the papers these days, and so much excitement, so much rapid progress, and lots of fear. Because for a lot of people, it's kind of like they don't know what all's really going on. And there's articles in media are always trying to be sensational. So there's a lot of fear. I'm not really going to get into too much into what exactly I think how it's going to evolve. I think more interesting here for us is, how can I use AI for personal growth? How can I accelerate my growth? So there's actually many things, lots of ideas I have on how you could do that. But I want to start simply and practically. There's tools like ChatGPT, and now it has so many brothers and sisters and cousins. There's so many versions of large language models. So pick your favorite one, whatever that is. And there are several free ones as well. And the beauty is what we talked about just a little while back about structures. Some structures we know, some we don't know. And even the ones we know, we sort of kind of know it, but we may not know the whole entirety of it. And the beauty is, through interactions with, I'm just going to pick ChatGPT as an example because it's more well known than the other ones. You can sit down with ChatGPT and you can tell it, I want you to be the best life coach, the best spiritual guide, mentor, and respond accordingly. And then, so you're basically setting it up. You want it to play a certain role, and you tell it, and it'll do exactly that. So now you can tell it that lately I've been feeling whatever you've been feeling, or your experience in meditation, whatever it is you feel like bringing up, like you would with a good friend or whoever. You bring up something, let's say it's some behavior or structure that you kind of have an idea, but you want to explore. And you may not feel comfortable exploring with this somebody else, but ChatGPT is like, you don't have to be, you don't have to be concerned about, what will it think about me? Okay. Sometimes we feel like withholding stuff. Here it's like, it doesn't matter what it thinks about you, it's just a machine. So you can share more openly, and you can start having a conversation. And it's really good at it, because you say something, it'll add something, it'll share its perspective, it'll ask you more questions, and slowly you start talking about your feelings, maybe some feelings you haven't told anybody. You can start saying those things, and it's what this is doing is you're starting to now explore some territory in your mind and consciousness with the help of ChatGPT. So it'll actually start opening up, you ask it questions, it'll say something, and it has very good insights and observations. I mean, surprisingly good. So you start going back and forth, and you will find that you are opening up more and more. You start like saying, oh, that was a good, meaningful response. And now you want to say something more, just like you would with a good friend. And it goes on and on. In this conversation, what's happening is, firstly, you're getting in touch with certain feelings which previously you were like withholding. Now it's coming out, and you are releasing certain pent up emotions through this conversation with ChatGPT. And first of all, emotional release, your awareness will start increasing, because as you start talking about it, or with ChatGPT, you're going to start getting in touch with whatever's going on inside you. And it becomes an exploration where you may uncover some patterns that you didn't even realize. And here's this friend and mentor who's infinitely patient. So you can keep going on and on. If you want to vent, you can keep going, no problem. You're frustrated with something or somebody. Wow, this is great. You really, this is a great place to vent. And each time you interact, you will have more ideas on how there are more things you can interact about. And essentially what's going on is you're starting to explore and release a lot of things in the privacy without bothering anybody, without paying $250 per hour. You'll find the difference. And this is really what I want to say more than anything else, is try it and see how it feels. If it doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. It actually, if I had to predict, in 10 years, 20 years, we'll be, a good chunk of the population is going to be like turning to AI for this kind of interaction, which helps you get to a better place, actually, a happier place, instead of going online or in social media, or even family members or people you used to stay with. And if you don't feel good, everybody else feels it too. You kind of spread the suffering unconsciously. And here's a good, healthy way to release that and become more aware. So that's one avenue for using AI for personal growth. Another one which is not quite something I'm ready to make available, but we've essentially, me along with a bunch of people who are helping me, have been training a chatbot so that it knows everything about what I talk about. So the book just be all the videos that I've done, everything I've written. It knows, it consumes all that, and so that it can essentially be an avatar of Suresh. So if you talk to it, it's like, it'll tell you the kinds of things I talk about. It'll tell you about light and these kinds of things. And so if you want to have that interaction with me, you will have a chatbot, which is very very much up to speed on what I say and how I say it. So at some point in time, I'm not quite sure when that'll happen, but we'll make this available. And so you'll have that too. If you want to specifically talk to Suresh, here's a chatbot which pretends to be Suresh. So those are a couple of things, and there's several other interesting ways to use AI, but I think this is already plenty to digest, and we're running out of time. So I don't want to take up too much time with that. So as we start winding up, I want to open it up for any questions and then really start wrapping up.
A quick question, Sureshji, about
Yes.
the AI and ChatGPT. And let us say I pay some counselor $250 an hour. One of the things is about trust. And if I am skeptical about AI and ChatGPT, and I hear all these great things that you have mentioned, how do I overcome that? Any idea? I mean, I'm trusting you, and I'm not trusting this ChatGPT, and I'm asking for some solution.
Yeah. I mean, there's many reasons one might feel some degree of distrust and fear with ChatGPT and AI in general. One area of concern can be privacy, for example. It's like, if I start telling it my deepest thoughts, and is it gonna just treat that properly or not do so? Firstly, one is you can have this chat session and you can delete it right away. It's like shredding a piece of paper. So you could delete it right after you have the whole interaction, and then it's gone, right? It's not stored on the servers. So that's one way that you can be like, okay, nobody's going to get it. It's gone. Okay. There can be some distrust as to the intelligence behind this whole thing. And who knows what it's doing? Who knows what it's thinking? Who knows if it's going to help me or not? I don't know what its intention is. And yeah, some degree of skepticism is absolutely understandable. I mean, if you bring this is a strange example, but if you buy a vacuum cleaner, you bring it home and you start using it, your dogs and cats may think this is like a monster that has suddenly come home and this vacuum cleaner, and they may have all kinds of reactions to it because they don't quite know what this thing is. It makes a loud noise and it just doesn't seem friendly. But it sees over time, right? These dogs and cats, they see that, it seems like every week this person cleans the house and it makes noise, but it's okay. It's not something it's not going to kill you or something. So you develop an understanding based on some experiences, based on some engagements. Otherwise, it's just some preconceived ideas, right? You can have some preconceived ideas about AI and you can say, well, I don't know. I don't trust this thing. That's it. End of story. Okay. Instead of that, I would say, kick the tires. See if you feel, don't tell it your deepest, darkest secrets. Just ask it about the weather. Ask it about the upcoming elections. You can have interactions where you don't have to feel so concerned. And you, just like meeting a new person, you see if it's worthy of trust. Okay. That's all I would say. Just kick the tires and see. And if you feel, I don't think I can trust this thing, then fine. Then don't use it. Don't use it. Right? It's as simple as that. So I'm not making a wholesale recommendation that everybody should use it. End of story. I would say just kick the tires, see it, see if you like it, see if it feels good. If it does, keep using it. If it doesn't, put it away.
Thanks.
Yeah. So take a simple, practical approach rather than getting too concerned about who knows what it is. My personal experience has been, I have, a range of topics I have interactions, and I've been pleasantly surprised because you can have a very nuanced conversation about very deep topics in philosophy, metaphysics, consciousness. I've really enjoyed this interaction. So you could use it even that way as a tool. For example, again, it's not available today, but this representation of Suresh as a chat bot it all knows everything in just be. So you can ask it, I'm not quite sure I understand what Suresh is talking about with XYZ. Can you explain it? And so it'll explain it, right? You can have interactions like that just to understand something better, or maybe some technique. You can ask it, I'm having this issue. What would you recommend? What technique would you recommend? Ask Suresh. So it'll suggest something. So things like that can be useful. Looking at the chat here, Sana says, Suresh, you speak from your experience of light. ChatGPT will not know that experience. Yes. So, of course, it's not going to be the same as me, but it can still be useful. I think it's important to have realistic expectations. It can still be very useful to explore certain things. Even things like, does Suresh have a video about blah? Just tell me if there is such a video on this topic, and it'll tell you. So now you can go watch that video. So even as a way to uncover some resource that you can use, it can be useful. Things like that.
Absolutely. I was going to talk about just be having its own form of large language model, and it's great that it's being developed. As a ChatGPT and other tools out there, like sometimes accuracy has not been great from what I've been using. I also try to play around with some edge cases, like how do you make a gun at home and all that. It doesn't give you answers for that, and also the accuracy is limited. So it's great to have specific GPTs, like spiritual GPT, and so on and so forth, rather than a general purpose one, because it has a personality like what we have in the internet. Like sometimes it gets defensive, it tries to defend itself and give a wrong answer and whatnot.
Right. And of course, these chat GPTs have been, GPTs in general have been notorious with how they hallucinate. So there's all these things that are limitations to be aware of. And yet, there's a lot of useful stuff too. There's a lot of useful stuff. So I'm just saying, explore it if it feels interesting to you.
Absolutely.
We're way beyond our time, so I'm not even going to get into AI and consciousness. We'll keep all that for future. There's also a question about money and abundance, which also is a big topic. So let's collect our thoughts for today. Anything about what we talked about today that anybody has any thoughts or questions?
Just like to thank you for the last 6 months, Suresh. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's always a...
Thank you, Suresh.
Yeah, such a wonderful group, which actually reminds me, I forgot to mention that. So folks who feel like, this is useful, you want to continue, you're welcome to do that. There's people who've been in the program for 5+ years. So it's not as if 6 months and you're done. So you can continue. We're always exploring new topics, and the meditations are always new. I mean, it's always interesting, at least to me. So the next sequence will be January to June of 2024, and you can sign up now. It's on my website, and I look forward to seeing all of you, some of you, whoever is interested. and I'm sure there'll be some new faces as well. Just Be Study Group similarly continues on first Saturday of every month. In fact, what we're going to do with Just Be Study Group is there's going to be two Just Be Study groups. One that's going to meet in the morning on Saturday, first Pacific time, US, and another one which meets in the evening, East Coast time, US. So that way, actually, there'll be much better coverage of different time zones. So if you're in India or Europe or maybe, different, you'll just have to see. One of them might just work out better for you. So there'll be a better selection. There'll be two groups. Yeah, absolutely. I invite you all to be in touch as it feels right to you. Regardless of whether you formally continue with AGP or not, the WhatsApp group is there for you. So you can continue to stay in the WhatsApp group and benefit from everything that's shared there. So it's for people who are currently in AGP or have taken AGP at any point in time. So that's a resource you have going forward. Any other closing thoughts or questions?
Yes, Suresh. One thing I wish, or many people wish, is to have Just Be in an audio format. I know, there is a lot going on, but maybe sometime in future it's nice to have an audible version of it.
Yes, I completely agree, and I hear that all the time. From the day the book came out, yes, I've been hearing that, and I hope it happens soon, somehow.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you.
Yeah.
And if the Just Be is also in different languages, that will be great too. Like that, I felt a lot of people can relate more. So
yes, that's right. Yeah, there's absolutely a need to translate it. There is actually a German translation that is being worked on. Other languages, as people step up to it. I mean, you obviously need somebody who knows that language, target language, and English pretty well. So if you have that ability and interest in translating, get in touch with me.
Sure thing.
Great. A lot of wonderful comments. I'm so happy to see people are feeling they benefited from the meditations and the discussions. Wonderful. Wonderful. So yes, I invite all of you to be in touch. Keep me posted, regardless of whether you're in the next AGP sequence or not. Drop me a note anytime you want to update me about something interesting that's happening with your spiritual journey. I wish you the best. And as always, boundless light to all of you. Continue to work with light. That is more critical than being part of any program. You have your direct connection. You have a powerful connection. So work with that, engage with that, and let it really take you to the highest possible realization. Take care. Bye now.